Good morning, my students of class 8. Hope you have gone through the preview of this module. So, now moving on with your political science, as you call it, civics, also taking up second unit, Parliament and the making of laws, wherein we are discussing the fourth chapter, that is understanding laws. Although from this unit we have done third chapter, which was quite similar, but yes, it was more or less about the role of parliament, functions of parliament. But here we would be emphasizing upon rule of law and how the parliament also looks after the certain controversial laws. So now, do laws apply to all? The law cannot discriminate between persons on the basis of their religion, caste, or gender. What the rule of law means is that all laws apply equally to all citizens of the country and that no one is above the law. A rule of law is defined in the Oxford English Dictionary also as the authority and influence of law in society, especially when viewed as a constraint on individual and institutional behavior. So now when we talk about rule of law under democracy, it suggests that in a democratic form of government, it prevails in the government, civil society, and market economy of every state with a functional constitution. The rule of law exists when a state's constitution functions as the supreme law of land. Neither a government official, nor a wealthy person, nor even the president of the country is above the law. Any crime or violation of law has a specific punishment, as well as a process through which the guilt of the person has to be established. So it is also having a vivid definition as the rule of law is a legal principle that law should govern a nation as opposed to arbitrary decisions by individual government officials. It primarily refers to the influence and authority of law within society, particularly as a constraint upon behavior, including behavior of government officials. The phrase can be traced back to the 16th century England, and it was popularized in the 19th century by British jurist A.V. Dicey. The concept was familiar to ancient philosophers such as Aristotle, who wrote, "Law should govern." And also, Legal Help Desk also defines rule of law. The origin of the rule of law theory can be traced back to the ancient Romans during the formation of the First Republic. It has since been championed by several medieval thinkers in Europe, such as Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, through the social contract theory. Indian philosophers such as Chanakya have also exposed the rule of law theory in their own way by maintaining that The king should be governed by the word of law. So if we go into detail that what is the importance of rule of law, we simply get to a conclusion that it is so valuable as it limits the arbitrary, that is by force, arbitrary power. British introduced the rule of law in India. Historians refuted this claim on several grounds, and the most predominant among them were the colonial law was arbitrary, and the other is the Indian nationalists played a prominent role in development of legal sphere in British India. Now getting on to 9 dimensions of rule of law. And what are they? Constraints on government powers, absence of corruption, open government, fundamental rights, order and security, regulatory enforcement, civil justice, criminal justice, and informal justice. As we all know that rule of law is that everybody is equal in the eyes of law. Wherein it has already been said that a common man or a president both have to be meted with the same treatment if they are found to be guilty. Now another is Sedition Act 1870. Now when we talk about Sedition Act, what does it state? Sedition Act of 1870 allowed the government to arrest or detain any person without a fair trial in the court. And the idea was it was an example of arbitrariness that continued to exist. And the idea of sedition was broadly understood under this act, although it was widely protested and criticized. So now if we talk about Indian context, sedition, which falls under section 124A of the Indian Penal Code, is defined as any action that brings or attempts to bring hatred or contempt towards the government of India, has been stated as illegal. Now here it is something which had been taken into context after 1870. Although prior to that it was British governance in India, and the Sedition Act was wherein if any person goes against and speaks against British government, he is liable to punishment. Now coming to Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005. According to this new law, sons, daughters and their mothers can get an equal share of family property. As we all know, girls under Hindu Succession Act have been made eligible for equal share of property. Now, although there were various high courts wherein this had been discussed and they had their view, daughters born before September 9, 2005 were not entitled to equal share in the ancestral property. Only those daughters who were born after enactment of 1956 Act were entitled to equal share. Now, they were quite controversial, but these statements had been brought out. Right to equal share applied to all daughters from the date of enactment of the original law, the Hindu Succession Act 1956, as amendments of 2005 substituted earlier provisions. So an amendment was done in 2005. Living daughters would be entitled to equal share even if father had died prior to September 9, 2005. But Litigations over partition were pending in courts. So these were stated under Hindu Succession Act, wherein the daughters had been made a party to the right to property. Now coming to Domestic Violence Act 2005. Now domestic violence refers to the injury or harm or threat of injury. It is misprinted. Threat of injury or harm caused by an adult male, usually the husband, against his wife. Injury may be caused by physically beating up the woman or by emotionally abusing her. Abuse of women can also include verbal, sexual, and economic abuse. Domestic violence. Many times you've seen domestic violence is there somewhere in the neighborhood. Some atrocities are being incurred towards the woman of the family, or maybe the newly wedded bride, or maybe it can be somewhere down the line where even the domestic servant is being incurred to anything which is related to domestic within the vicinity of the four walls. Now, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 suggests that we cannot practice domestic violence. Stop violence against women. Humiliation, indifference, abuse, victimizing her, ill treatment, insult, any such thing is practiced, then it is a punishable offense. There had been laws in India against domestic violence, that is, tortured because of dowry, even killed, assaulted, then cruelty, coercion, harassment, beating up, torturing. So many factors could be included in this. Even physical violence had been taken into consideration, power and control by the Indian government. Now coming to role of Parliament, as this has to be our favorite topic. Now, Parliament had been taking care of all this because it passes the laws that turn out to be very unpopular at times. And we have seen that it has an important role in making laws. It is to be sensitive to the problems faced by the people. From establishing the need for a new law to its being passed. At every stage of the process, the voice of the citizen is a crucial element. Most of the time, we look into this, that who's going to be the voice? The voice can be heard through TV reports, newspaper editorials, then radio broadcasts, local meetings, all of which help in making the work that Parliament does more accessible and transparent to the people. Since we all know that we have put forward our own representatives in the Parliament, so they are responsible. If the law favors one group and disregards the others, it will be controversial and it can lead to conflict. And people who think that the law is not fair can approach the court to decide on issue. And of course, the court, or the judiciary as we say, has the power to modify or cancel laws if it finds that they don't adhere the Constitution. If you remember, we had discussed about Rosa Parks. Yes, she was protesting the law on segregation that divided up all public places, including the streets, between the whites and African Americans. Her refusal was a key event that marked the state of the civil rights movement. It actually started civil rights movement. and which led to the promulgation of Civil Rights Act in the year 1964. And finally, this Civil Rights Act, what did it claim? It prohibited discrimination on the basis of race, religion, or national origin. This is a very important example wherein we talk about the role of Parliament. Now, finally, coming to the end of this chapter, the role of Parliament suggests that created after 1947, the Indian Parliament is an expression of the faith that the people of India have in principles of democracy. These are participation by people in the decision-making process and government by consent. The Parliament in our system has immense powers because it is the representation, or also we can say representative, of the people. Now, elections to the Parliament. Elections to the Parliament also, they are done through, yes, election to the Parliament are held in a similar manner as they are for the state legislature. All the more same. That is for the central government and this is for state government. So when we talk about Parliament of India, as in the first module, I had told you that our Indian Parliament is bicameral, which means it comprises of two houses, and then it is a supreme legislative body of India, right? Indian Parliament comprises of the President and two houses, and the President has the power to summon and prorogue either of the House of Parliament. Is it clear? So when we look into it, that Parliament is a place where most of the laws are promulgated, most of the matters of national concern are discussed, and in modern politics and history, a Parliament is a legislative body of the government, and predominantly, if I summarize saying that a modern Parliament has three functions. What could be they? Representing the electorate first. The other could be making laws and overseeing the government via means through hearings and inquiries. Whatever decision has to be taken, it has to be taken into it has to be brought into the notice of the Parliament. And most of all, when we talk about major functions, it also looks into financial control through the budget discussion. Then it is a check on arbitrary powers of other organs. What are the two other organs? There are mainly three organs of the government. One is legislature, so that we are talking about, that is Parliament, and left out two organs are judiciary and executive, and maintain stability and peace and protect state in case of external aggression and war. So when we get on to the role of Parliament, it has a very important role. We need to remember that our role as citizens does not end with electing our representatives. So we should bear in mind that it is the extent, involvement and enthusiasm of the people that helps the Parliament to perform and its representative functions properly. Who are the representative? The representative is the one who has been chosen by us. And as it is rightly said that we have to be equally responsible in supporting the parliament, and through the parliament we are supporting the government. So finally, concluding this, we say the role of parliament, the two-house system, checking the work of the government, legislation, debate, rules and customs, traditions of parliament, then parliament and government, and in the larger perspective or wider horizon, if we are talking about parliament and crown, devolved parliaments and assemblies, Europe, and evolution of parliament. So this is from all over the world. We are not confiding to Indian parliament at large. So finally, moving on to the assignment. After winding up this chapter, we need to do the assignment so as to ensure and ascertain the learning. Answer the following questions. And mind it, the answers to the questions are available in these modules. State any two reasons why historians refuted the claim that British introduced the rule of law in India. You get the clue? In this module I have discussed. And the other question is, explain the term rule of law with the help of a PowerPoint presentation. This would be very interesting because you would be getting many of the images and illustrations. You can insert them in the slides. You can take the written part and you can make a PowerPoint presentation which would be vividly describing the rule of law. So get on to doing the assignment. If you want to go through the module once again, you go through it and then start doing the assignment, and after that make sure that it reaches out to us through the Google Classroom. You're expected to complete the assignment before the next week. Why? Because the coming week again you would be given another chapter wherein you would be having an assignment. So be regular with your work. You should have your full involvement. You can take help of elders at home and enjoy doing the assignment. Try to complete it on time. Send it across. It should reach out to us, because everything what is being taught to you or you are being asked to do has an accountability. Am I making myself clear? Yes. And with this, I call off this session for today. This was it from my end. Enjoy doing the assignment and enjoy being at home with your parents. Stay happy. Stay safe. Bye-bye.